Oh, no, we got to talk about this Jerry Jones stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying it's Jerry Jones stuff because he's involved. And the thought of his voice saying the things that John Snyder said that he said is awesome because he has that Texas, Arkansas accent that just kind of, you know, like, we got to fucking get rid of Roger Goodell. Yeah. Who do they call? Dan Snyder and Jerry Jones are on a phone call together. Hey, Dan, how's it going? We got to get rid of this fucking problem that's Roger Goodell. Who do we call? Fucking Papa John.
Yeah. We need Papa.
Get Snyder on the phone.
Allegedly, what had happened was, and this is via the Fearless with Jason Whitlock podcast, allegedly what had happened was John Snyder told Jason Whitlock openly in a podcast, just casually in conversation, we all know Roger Goodell's a coward, all right? Jason Whitlock probably said, yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, okay. So we're just talking freely as if we're in a kitchen or in a living room or something like that. Yeah, Roger Goodell, he's a fucking coward. We all know that. Then Jerry Jones, Dan Snyder, and the CEO of Pepsi at the time, I forget the name. This is 100% on me, but when you see the name, I might be forgiven by people for forgetting the name, okay? Mm-hmm. So I do feel bad, but it was somebody else who was the CEO of Pepsi. So it was like Indra Nooyi, former CEO with Pepsi Company, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, and Dan Snyder, and by the way, he even says Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, just so anybody didn't think it was some other fucking Jerry Jones. Right. This ain't Jerry Jones for Subway down the street. Snyder and Jones hate Goodell, Snyder said. I said, no, this is not my job to fire your commissioner. He works for you. Remember, Goodell is a coward, and he is incompetent. John Snyder says, just casually. And he's just lucky. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, he says to Jason Whitlock, I know who Jerry Jones is. Indra Nooyi with Pepsi Company and Dan Snyder all called me. Several other folks about Goodell's conduct and the way he was handling this. This was the national anthem and everything that was going on at that time as ratings were. Jones and Dan Snyder wanted Goodell fired. This is like 1st of November, end of October. They called and said, you need to take this guy out. You're the number one sponsor of the league. As far as notoriety and acceptance and association, everybody loves you. They love Peyton. We hate Goodell. How much of this is real? How much of this was like connotation? How much of this is direct quotes? Because you can have a conversation with somebody and what you say and they hear could be vastly different, but the messaging might be the same. So who knows what was actually said, what wasn't said? Sounds like there was certainly a little bit of conversation between two of the most powerful owners in the NFL at the time, talking to the biggest sponsor of the NFL on trying to move the commissioner out. Follow up. Everybody says that Roger Goodell and Dan Snyder are boys. That's how Dan Snyder has survived all of the PR blunders and terrible things that have happened under his watch with the Washington football team, now known as they are Commanders. Bum, ba-da-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Well,
and he always gets by, and people are like, how's it doing? And everybody on the internet always goes, well, he's Roger Goodell's boy. He's Roger Goodell's boy. He's Roger Goodell's boy. Whenever I understand how the NFL operates, it's always like Jerry Jones is doing a business. Like Jerry Jones is a mover. Jerry Jones is a shaker. So you just assume Jerry Jones, Roger Goodell, they're boys. I think that's the biggest takeaway here is like maybe Roger Goodell is not in good favor with a lot of the people that we assume he's in good favor. And he makes $60 million a year. And his contract is up here in a couple of years. I assumed that was going to be automatically extended if Roger Goodell wanted to. Yeah. They're going to be looking to move on from him. And they're trying to do it in a clean way. Potentially, if what Papa John Snyder, who has said very dumb things and wrong things in the past, said on a podcast, Fearless with Jason Whitlock, that's fascinating and interesting stuff. That is normally turmoil that you never hear outside of that one per club meeting they were talking to Jim Irsay about, other than Jim Irsay telling a story about like, yeah, I had to ask a guy, are you going to fuck us or not? What's he going to do? Is he going to pull out an AK-47 and shoot me right there? Like in those walls, in one per club meetings, that's where all the disagreements always remain. Now, via Papa John's, you know, it's potentially leaking out. There's no way anybody at the NFL likes this, and I wonder what Commissioner Goodell thinks immediately after hearing that podcast.
Maybe that's why Dan does the things that he does, is because he thinks that Goodell doesn't have the spine to fucking remove him from his position or whatever. And do you think Indra was involved? Is Pepsi like the second biggest sponsor? So she said, hey, I'm in. If Papa's in too, we could get this done.
So Indra, definitely a woman?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I didn't want to, just with what you just did there, I didn't want to assume anything.
She looks really nice too. She doesn't seem like she'd want the commissioner fired.
Well, I think she was in there just because Jerry said, hey, we might be making a move that affects your money as well. I know you got the Pepsi halftime show. We're thinking right before they're fucking get down. They moved on, right? They no longer have the halftime show.
No.
I don't think so.
I wonder if this was the beginning of the planting of the seeds of Pepsi getting out of bed with the NFL because they got Jerry Jones, I believe, the most popular and over owner in the NFL, telling her about how they're trying to fucking fire the commissioner from outside in. And how about Papa John saying, I'm not firing your guys as commissioner. I mean, this is your literal job. What an interesting situation. I hope Jerry's not going to respond. Nobody's going to respond to this.
No way.
They're just going to move along like nothing happened. But Commissioner Goodell, when he sits in that leather chair and he's got his peanut M&Ms and he's down in his basement, it looks like it's like 200 square feet or whatever. He makes $60 million a year.
Yep.
He's going to toss that peanut M&M. Those motherfuckers. He's going to think about this. But I guess he's dealt with shit like this literally the entire time being there.
Well, and I assume it's a little bit easier because everyone just kind of like, oh, Papa John's a fucking wacko. Like, whatever this guy says, like, who gives a shit? He was talking about, him taking 18 months to right his wrongs and get certain words out of his vocabulary. But you did mention...
I forgot all that.
Yeah, exactly. So you hear that and then him saying...
I've been working.
Yeah, listen, the last 18 months I have really, went back into my vocabulary.
Trying to squash this thing.
But the 60 million part, that kind of does make sense. Like Jerry would like to find a commissioner potentially who they don't have to pay 64 million.
I would like to warn Jerry. This is all allegedly, by the way, and it's coming from that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, that guy on the right there, who I took a photo with him one time, and he put, just like he's doing to Jerry right there, he put his fist into my sternum.
That's his move.
I think that is his move. And he had a T-shirt on. Probably had a good flex on at that time.
Yeah.
This was at the beginning of his come up. This is when the "Hey Papa" commercials were happening, and he was throwing the
deep
ball.
balls. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was on his way out of an event that I should not have been at, but I was invited to somehow because I can drink beers good. He's walking out of there. He's on his way out. "Hey Papa!" He turns around. Big pop out of the people. Not at John.
Right, of course.
Not at John. I say, hey, can I get a picture with you? Puts his fist directly into my sternum. I was like, is he pissed? Turns out that's just his move.
Yeah.
They called and said, you need to take this guy out. All right, you're number one sponsor of the league as far as notoriety and acceptance and association. Everybody loves you, Papa. Hey, Papa. And they love Peyton. Everybody loves Peyton. We hate Goodell. This is wild. This is happening. Now, Papa John, as the boys alluded to in hour one, I don't think anybody's taking anything he says seriously after some of the things that he has said in the past. And it's like, okay, if that brain is saying those things, can we take anything that's coming from that brain seriously? But at least I would assume that if it wasn't those exact words, it was at least that direction, that conversation. And I always thought Dan Snyder and Goodell were boys. I always thought Jerry Jones and Goodell were boys. Now John Snyder, pizza conglomerate former, is saying that's not the case at all. That's wild to me. That's not normally what we hear publicly,
I mean, this looks like he and Jerry Jones are very tight right here in this picture, but
Me and Papa have this photo. Me and Papa have the same photo. We are not that tight.
Don't you think that we haven't heard of this because people don't take John Snyder seriously, that he has no credibility?
How far will he go to get some little bit of clout these days? Is probably what everybody is saying. I assume that's why it hasn't become a deal. I was almost insulted that we had not heard about this morning. I looked around. I was like, how have we not heard about Jerry Jones, Dan Snyder, CEO of Pepsi, Papa John burying Roger Goodell? Is that not in what we should be talking?
Papa John was saying that they buried Goodell.
Yes, it was.
So I guess they would say we didn't. I'm sure. I would imagine they will say, or they'll decline to comment on it. But do you think Goodell, even 1%, thinks oh, maybe this is true? You think he's worried?
Goodell sits down on a leather chair in his basement watching NFL football, not high school, not college, not United States, not Canadian, not extreme.
No way.
NFL football is what he's watching, eating peanut M&Ms, and he's like, hey, this motherfucker's Pepsi, fuck Pepsi. Yeah, I think he does think about all this.